Hi, Professor Kimberly Miller. This is Mary Murphy again, and this is my presentation on the four developmental eras that has shaped education. So the first era I'm going to talk about is called the permissive era. And during this time, this is back when education started in the colonies in 1642. Now, this is when everything was barely starting at the very, very beginning. The government allowed school districts to be organized. They wanted to vote on it with the parents' approval. The land ordinance of 1785, it divided the territories back then because everyone was like basically still forming um, into different states. The first public high schools opened in Boston, Massachusetts during this time. Benjamin Franklin founded his own school. However, it was private, so he developed his own curriculum during that time. And the era ended in 1821. And I found a cool picture here representing the division of all the territories. Now, this was the encouraging era, and I do emphasize the word encouraging on this one. And this era lasted from 1826 to 1851. Now, the government was encouraging the formation of school districts, but no schools were established yet. They wanted to raise tax money to help support and to fund these schools. Um, the children were not required to attend school, mostly because some of the students were still being tutored at home, mostly either by private tutors or from their parents again. And certain states required towns to have committees to help form the schools to figure out what they wanted to do. This was the compulsory era. The government compelled the states for school districts so that way the schools could be established. The funds were collected through taxes for schools, but the taxes kept getting raised up every year to keep the money coming in. Curriculum and school structure, this is when it was first created. Unfortunately, most of the schools were still teaching the Bible and they were trying to get the kids away from that subject. So, school is now mandatory for children of all ages from 6 to 13 years. Some students are not allowed to attend private school. So, what was going on was that these private schools were not government established. So, because the state wanted to control where the kids went, they made private schooling forbidden even if the parents could afford tuition. And the era lasted from 1855 to 1980. Now, this is the freedom or school choice era, and this is that has officially become my favorite era of this assignment. Um, Education options expanded for all students, and scholarships, vouchers, and tax credits help the students to pay for education. Homeschooling was allowed during this time. I was homeschooled myself at one time. Colleges and private schools raise tuition. That way they can afford to pay the teachers, keep the school running, and to allow the students to have a way to pay for their school books. No, the No Child Left Behind law was signed at this time to help students of low income to help them do better in school. And this era lasted from 1980 to 2009, but I still believe that we are in this era currently with education. I don't think we ever left this era. Now I would like to talk about how these eras have affected potential students. Now let's remind ourselves, potential students are students that are struggling in reading, writing. It could be a language barrier. It could be them coming from a foreign country to a new environment. So getting these schools together, it was not easy because back then, this is right when the colonies were established. So the territories had to be divided up so that way the states could start being established. Education has changed our potential students because now we have private schools to help get them individual tutoring, and we have other ways to assist them with their education now. Individual tutoring only worked for so long with the colonies because the government wanted them to be in school and not at home all the time with their parents. Throughout history, laws were created to protect students. This way, everyone had a fair chance of getting an education. Um, Integration was established so that way all students, whether they're Caucasian or of color, everyone could come together to learn something new. Our potential students had a hard time at first because we had to get everyone on the same plate and in the same time to get them going with their futures. That way, we could get everyone else going as well. Private schools are now established for everyone. That includes trade schools, so that way they can learn a new job, especially if someone is trying to support a family. That way they're not in school for a long period of time. Everyone now has a brighter future because of these laws and because of the errors that have happened. Now I want to talk about how these errors have affected my view of the way that education has been delivered today. I used to be a tutor myself. I was an online tutor, and I was also an in-person tutor for people here in my hometown and around the world. I This is when I learned more about online learning and how far I could reach other students through this medium. I also learned that everyone learns differently, and the tutoring also gave me a push forward into my teaching career. So, as a teacher, I am now adjusting my methods to meet the needs of my students. I'm only a substitute teacher, but I am still learning how each of my classes learn as I go along. I am glad that I got help whenever I was in school because I used to struggle myself with math. And has never been my strong suit for as long as I can remember. History has made me grateful for my teaching job because without the errors that happened, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I am glad and proud of what I have learned throughout history and in my journey of being a teacher, and what it means to me now. Hi, Professor Miller. These are the references that I used for this presentation. I hope that you enjoyed learning more about the errors that I chose, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks. Have a great weekend.